Casey and I were doing the drive every day. So 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. We spent 10 hours in the car a week together. The first couple of years were not easy, to say the least. Casey and I both look back very, I don't know if fondly is the right word, but on those hours, multiple hours, days spent in the car together, like, I don't know how we would have gotten through this if we didn't have that hour on the way to work and the hour on the way back to talk about problems, to decompress, to celebrate maybe some of the few wins that we did have in the early years.
Shoulder to cry on.
Shoulder to cry on.
Because your wife doesn't want to listen to it.
Oh, we're not bringing that back into the house, that's for sure.
Search Party is sponsored by Avid Bank, Boulay, Mayer Brown, Plexus Capital, and Oberle. The lead sponsor is Next Coast Legacy. Hello and welcome to Search Party. I'm David Snow, your host. And today we're joined by Casey Schuler, CEO of PalCare, Hutson Prioleau, president of PalCare, Dustin Sellers, a managing partner at Next Coast Legacy, and August Felker, CEO of Oberle Risk Strategies. Gentlemen, welcome to Search Party. It's great to have you here. We are going to delve into the story behind a growing senior care healthcare company called PalCare. This was acquired almost 6 years ago by Casey, Hutson, and their partners, including Dustin Sellers. In learning about PalCare, we're going to learn the ETA journey, the Entrepreneurship-Through-Acquisition journey of Casey and Hutson. Maybe first question for you, Casey. In a nutshell, what is PalCare?
Whenever we have to describe what PalCare is in the elevator, we are the help I've fallen, I can't get up for the B2B class. So if you were to walk into an assisted living community, memory care community, you'd see pull cords on the wall, you'd see the residents with pendants. PalCare is the technology behind the scenes that allows for a resident, when they press for help, for that signal that alerts to go to the nurse call station.
Give us a quick personal background and talk about what led you to entrepreneurship through acquisition as a career path.
Grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, went to Texas A&M. Both my dad and both grandparents had an entrepreneurial background. And so got to see what they were able to do throughout their careers. Always kind of put a pie in the sky for me saying, yeah, I want to do something like that one day. After graduating from college, I think did what all good Texans do and went to go work in the oil and gas industry. For about 2 years of that, figured out, okay, this isn't necessarily what I want to do with my life, and figured it was time for a pivot. So decided no better time than now to go back to business school. Ended up at TCU in Fort Worth, where Casey and I met and built a strong friendship and mutual partnership. We always joke, TCU does not have an ETA program. Actually, a friend of mine had launched a self-funded search, and one afternoon we were having a conversation and he brought it up. I was like, that's interesting. Casey and I had always talked about wanting to do something entrepreneurial together. Never really knew what that was. Always had a couple very bad ideas, maybe over a beer or two, of startups, and decided it might not be for us. But then started to learn about the search that just snowballed into, okay, what was an idea is now, okay, we're quitting our jobs and going out and actually raising that initial search round.
What were some of the bad ideas that you had for startups?
We thought about starting a bar. That was never a good idea. Casey, can you remember any of the other bad ideas we had?
It was just sports. We both like sports, and then we realized sports isn't an idea. Sports is a hobby. And we could never get past we like sports.
So is drinking, by the way.
Correct. We have a lot of hobbies we couldn't commercialize.
Casey, did you come from a similarly entrepreneurial family? How did you find your way to the ETA path?
I did not. So Hudson and I, pretty different. He played college sports. I didn't. He worked in the oil fields. I would have got destroyed in the oil fields. My parents, Army background, so grew up kind of all over the place. I was really a supply chain guy. Had worked with some big CPGs, had worked in consulting, and like anybody that's doing the consulting path, at some point, my wife was like, this just is not working. You gotta figure something else out. So when I had gone back to get my MBA, it was kind of that career switcher time. And thankfully, right after TCU had got in with a private equity-backed physician practice management roll-up. So it was the first time that I really got to experience what is private equity? Again, on the background, I had Hudson pulling on me all the time, like, hey, let's go back to doing something together. And thankfully had gone through that journey where it was like, I love operating, really liked being in the seat. In my prior background, a lot of the success that we had was me being boots on ground at a lot of these hospitals, like getting dirty, really figuring out what was going wrong and fixing the problem. And I think ETA was kind of that perfect version for me where it was like, hey, this is your fastest seat to be the guy and to be an operator. So very attractive. Obviously, getting to work with Hutson, one of my best friends, was also pretty desirable.
At Overly, we work with a lot of searchers on the insurance side of things, and Hutson and Casey just have such a strong partnership. The partnership really started first, and then they kind of went in to do a search. I think that's one of the big factors of why they've been so successful. It's just a great bond.
And David, I think an important point to point out for these two, we call them boomerangs, but folks that got introduced to ETA at either MBA or in that period, but we're not ready to go directly out of school. More and more, we're seeing that be the prototype. Kind of that early 30s, been out in the world a little bit, and it's still tugging at you. They're great searchers because I think they've got a little bit more time under their belt, more P&L experience, and further reinforced how they don't want to be corporate, and they want to go be the guy or the gal.
Dustin, you also see a lot of ETA groups, a lot of ETA searchers in your business. How often is it that they are paired with each other?
I think it's swung to solo search for a while there, largely because these are MBA students who are naturally greedy. And they looked at they could get, 25% of the equity if they could do it themselves. I think it's swung back fairly significantly, and the data is in favor of partnered search. When partnered searches work, 1 + 1 = 4 or even 5. Partnered searches don't work. You still have somebody likely in the partnership that can continue on with one person leaving the organization. We're partial to partnered search only because of that doubling of the royal we, so to speak, of the folks that can get stuff done, that have the competency within the organization when they sit in the seat. Not to say that there aren't fantastic solo searchers and plenty of them, and we back a lot of them as well. It's just harder to have that full skill set, to be totally honest. And you don't know what you don't know till you've sat in that seat. I mean, these guys have been sitting in the seat for a greater part of more than half a decade. But, that first year or second year, it's nice to have somebody else on the co-pilot with you.
Well, it's funny. Casey and I talk about that a lot. It will get into the business, but when we bought PalCare was actually located an hour north of where we sit today. So sit in Milwaukee today, we were up in Sheboygan. Casey and I were doing the drive every day. So 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. We spent 10 hours in the car a week together. The first couple of years were not easy, to say the least. Casey and I both look back very, I don't know if fondly is the right word, but on those hours, multiple hours, days spent in the car together, like, I don't know how we would have gotten through this if we didn't have that hour on the way to work and the hour on the way back to talk about problems, to decompress, to celebrate maybe some of the few wins that we did have in the early years.
A shoulder to cry on.
Shoulder to cry on.
Because your wife doesn't want to listen to it.
Oh, we're not bringing that back into the house. That's for sure.
You've been friends for a while. You probably watched a lot of sports together, maybe even had a few beers. But now that you're running a company in the early days, what was revealed about the dynamic between you two?
We always knew that we were more of a complement together, right? I had an operational background, really focused on how do I take a problem, how do I fix it, and how do I operationalize it? Hudson's always had that kind of sales mindset. Coming from the baking industry, he had more of a background than I didn't. So I think early on, we knew that there's just things that you don't like doing. All of a sudden, I have a partner that likes doing those things, right? So we always had this complement that I think worked really well. One of the things that we found out pretty quickly was, when you're first in seat, how much trust it takes to make some of those early decisions, right? Because we have different views, right? Hutson has a different background than I have. There's naturally going to be some friction. We both have egos. We're the first to admit it. It's really easy to sit up and be like, hey, I'm the CEO, or like this, I want to be the guy to make this decision. Even if you'd have those butting heads, falling back on the like, wait, this is Hutson. I trust him. I know he's going to make the right decision.
I was going to lead on the trust component of it, where Casey and I are both very opinionated people. And a lot of times those opinions don't align with each other. And something we found in going back to a baseline of a very strong trust with each other, it's like we can have very tough conversations with each other. Things will get heated. I threw a pin at Casey at one point in time. Like, things get heated, but it was pretty quick. It's like, okay, we're friends. We trust each other. And all right, 2 minutes later, it's like, all right, well, okay, let's move forward. Here's the idea. I think that's allowed us to move a lot quicker.
Ben and I were always jealous of a couple other partnerships because they'd go windsurfing together and then they took ski trips together. Like, Ben and I didn't really like each other. Like, we were amazingly good business partners. We were so different, and we had such different skill sets and different family dynamics, all kinds of stuff. But the trust that was really bonded through the search experience, because what people forget about is the most galvanizing part of the overall journey is actually trying to get a deal done. Like, once you're running the business, you at least have something to do day to day. But when you're actually searching for 24 months, for our case, 26 months. Like, you get really into each other's shit and you really kind of bond, or you don't.
How did you come up with your thesis? How did you come up with what you decided to go after as far as the type of business to invest in?
Casey and I first looked at what are businesses we actually want to operate. I joke anytime I talk with a prospective searcher, and it's like, would you be happy running an accounting business? You might have a great business that you found and you could go buy it at a great multiple and you see the path of it being a great outcome. Well, do you see yourself actually doing that in the day-to-day? What is my life going to look like for the next half decade? A lot of it was like, that was one of our initial filters that we would look at.
I'm going to push back on that for a second. Like, how quickly did you throw that filter out? Because like, it's so unrealistic. It's so unrealistic. Like, I ended up like running a payroll company. Like, that's exactly what I want to do. Like, come on.
Part two of it is does this business need skill sets that you have, right? And so it's kind of
that's where I was kind of going with it. What do you like doing? What are you good at?
Do you like the business, and if you can couple it with something that you like doing and you're good at, that's phenomenal. So we found a business, great business actually, provided commissary services to prisons in Louisiana. Very strong recurring revenue, phenomenal like actual business model that they ran. And Casey, I looked at each other one day, they were like, do we really want to do this? Which quickly backed us off of, we had under LOI, it could have closed.
Which one of you two did not want to get the tattoo?
Right, that was an arm wrestle that Casey would have lost.
Quick question for you, August. You are also an ETA searcher. You have previously acquired, improved, and sold a insurance brokerage business, and you're currently on your second one, Oberly. But you've told me in a previous conversation that you've always loved insurance. You always knew you wanted to run an insurance business.
Yeah, all I can really do is insurance. I wasn't as smart as Casey, so very, very limited. But I do think actually it seems like people sort of in the end kind of triangulate to where they're going to be happy. And sometimes that's location. Sometimes it's like business type. I have noticed though, if people do try to force a deal and it's in an industry they really don't like, kind of like Hutson was saying, it's just really hard to be successful in that environment, whether it's a location you just can't stand or, an industry you don't like and you can't get excited about. I think it's really hard to be successful. So I would say most people, it's probably unusual that they like pick exactly the industry they're going to like end up buying. But I think in some ways they kind of triangulate and get there both on location and sort of general type of industry.
Before we get to PalCare, I'd love to hear maybe some of the highs and lows of your search. Were there any moments where you felt elation and then were
mostly the lows, right?
Or yeah, what were your moments of despair that you can share with us?
I would say our search was generally upbeat and fun. I mean, one of our investors in Fort Worth, had an old office building. He said, take this, use whatever space you want. Casey, myself, and an unpaid intern sat in the exact same room for 8+ hours a day. I think going into it, we knew it was going to be a grind and there was a lot of uncertainty attached to it. And Casey and both are generally positive people and kept a pretty positive attitude for the entire time. It's not like we went through a bunch of broken deals and got super high on a business and that died on the 1-yard line. So we did not have to fortunately go through that type of a situation.
I think they're a little novelistic there, David, in the sense of the timing, right? Because it's usually month 8 through 14 that causes all of the true trauma and the need for therapy at a later date in life. Because you do get some good deals early. And even like for us, Pro Service, we saw in month 6. And we closed it in month 26 and didn't come back to us in like month 18 or month 19.
I think we closed like 6 months after I did my search and investors were like, I don't know, you should see more deals. That was their pushback. You need to see more deals. I was like, no, but this is the deal. So that was hard too. So I think
you also had you had some vertical expertise and a very clear focus.
Yeah, I did.
Which is very unique to search. I mean,
yeah,
I would say 9.6 out of 10 have they say they do, but they don't really have any competency in the space.
Yeah.
So how did the deal come about? How were you introduced to the seller? What were the dynamics between you and the seller? And why do you think you prevailed?
We had built out a network with brokers and we were getting good amount of deal flow that way. We built out our proprietary machine. I said, if you throw all of that out the window, a college roommate of Casey's who's working in lower middle market private equity came across the deal. And the seller wanted out and he kicked it to us, said, look, we'd only invest if the seller was staying. We think it's an interesting business. You guys should take a look. So, the joke's always been, we could have raised our fund and golfed for 6 months straight and still would have found the business.
I got a call from a fraternity brother who was running a small hotel chain using pro services and outsourced. Like, you still have to make your own luck. You still have to script the first 20 plays of the game against Alabama. You just don't know what's going to happen once you're into the game. And you have to do all of that stuff. You have to have the interns, and you have to have the proprietary search programs with Grata and all of that. But you just don't know. You literally don't know where the deal is going to come from.
Let's take a quick break to learn about a partner for growth in the lower middle market, Plexus Capital. Every Plexus Capital investment begins with a foundation of trust. The team approaches all partnerships through the lens of its CARE values, grounding principles that guide the team's decision-making. Care about our people. Always do what's right. Respect each other and our partners. Expect excellence. Plexus Capital has been providing debt and equity capital to lower middle market businesses since 2005 and began partnering with the search community in 2010. Since inception, the firm has deployed over $2.4 billion into over 190 small businesses. Given the team's expertise and track record, you could say Plexus Capital has large firm capabilities with a small deal focus. Look for commentary from Plexus Capital professionals in episodes of Search Party. Okay, now back to the episode.
We're telling our story to anybody and everybody who would listen to us. And whether that be friends, whether that be family, whether that be our network, former colleagues, whoever it was.
100%. Yeah.
Hut and I were on the road all the time, mainly because we would have driven each other crazy sitting in that office 8 hours a day. So every 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, we were somewhere else. We always knew we probably weren't coast guys, right? Our story resonated. Hutson playing football at Texas A&M is going to resonate very strongly with a lot of people in Texas. My experience was Midwest. So we were like, every 3 weeks, we'd pick that next kind of city where we thought our story would resonate, where we'd have success. We'd go up there, we'd meet the brokers, buddies, whatever that might be, and we'd tell it.
Hutson, what was your position on the team?
I was a tight end. So the worst offensive lineman and the worst wide receiver on the field.
Well, you did throw a pen at your business partner, so at least,
right.
you weren't a quarterback or something.
Didn't throw it very hard.
Okay, good. You said that you had a connection with the seller. Can you give us a quick overview of how that came about and how you had a meeting of the minds?
So again, we got lucky. The deal was kind of pre-diligenced. I would say PalCare wasn't a competitive process, but the seller was talking to other groups at that time. And, he was middle of America, middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. And what was different is Hut and I, once we got that first call, we were like, all right, we're flying to Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and we're going to come meet you. And I had a connection I went to undergrad at Marquette. My wife's family was from Wisconsin. And next thing you know, we're up until midnight pulling pull tabs with the seller and getting to know him in a very different way. But at least in that moment of like, hey, semi-competitive, you're talking to a lot of people. You were the only group that flew up there. You were the only group we got to meet his son and his daughter. Like we were the only guys that at least were having that legacy mindset when we went up to meet with them.
What's been fun for me, just hearing that, going back to the story, is, I got to know these guys during insurance diligence, but I was in Wisconsin. I bought a business in Wisconsin. So they moved to Wisconsin, and we're probably only a handful of searchers in Wisconsin. So it's been really fun.
It's become a hotbed now.
Now, yeah. We joined a YPO group up in Wisconsin together, and fun for me hearing this story.
I think one thing that we were smart about, again, we always said we wanted to be healthcare adjacent. And a piece of that is we didn't really want to touch businesses that were heavily insurance based, right? We didn't want to deal with CMS. There's a lot of unpredictable
reimbursement risk. Yeah.
Reimbursement risk was a very real thing that
capitated revenue, reimbursement risk, all the above. Yeah.
We got a lot smarter about staying away from businesses that probably were riskier for regulation risk and things like that. We don't touch CMS. We're really in a private pay market. And I think that goes with the silver tsunami significantly better over the long term.
Hutson probably reached out post LOI before closing and, said, hey, we're trying to put together our deal team, and would you look over the insurance? Generally, anything healthcare, the big thing is sort of professional liability and cyber liability, and often claims can be more severe. That's the big thing we kind of talked about. We hope that during diligence, we can kind of point out all the potential pitfalls and areas for claims, but there are always surprises.
The resilience of the business, right, can overcome catastrophic situations. I mean, if I'm looking at our portfolio and where we've had our stumbles, it wasn't the lack of talent or effort from the searchers. It was the resilience of the business or the one-trick pony elements of the capitated revenue and having their reimbursement cut in half or having a core set of the business completely go away. Again, we've used the word luck a lot, but it's come up a lot. Like there is a bit of luck of you don't really know how resilient your business is until you have a 2008 or you have a February of 2020, right? Those are just catastrophic moments that you don't predict, but you don't know what your business is going to do till it starts happening. And you're like, wow, there's a lot more stickiness here, a lot more resilience here in the business, thank God, than I thought it was going to be. The black swan is always out there.
So I remember the conversation, Dustin, it was you, me, Mike, we're talking about how does this business make revenue? The PalCare we bought, it was as simple as if I install my system, $100,000 system, that community is not going to replace a $100,000 system, right? They are going to spend $6,000, $7,000 a year maintaining that system, or we had good financials from the company for the last 5 years of, this trend of every new install, you get $6,000 to $8,000 per year in recurring revenue existed. So for us, like, how do we improve it? One, we knew that there was no software sales, right? So there's a software component to this, but it was literally project revenue, reoccurring revenue, but that always existed, almost no churn. So for us, we thought we had at least a strong moat of people, even in a pandemic, even if everything goes to hell, like people are not going to rip out their emergency nurse call systems. And every single building that's out there must have emergency nurse call.
Dustin referenced February of 2020. You acquired the business in 2019. I'm going to guess that the challenges you faced early on might have been related to COVID.
Well, right before Christmas, right? So we come up, we do the intros, get the keys handed over. I always joke, we did the intro, we sit down at a conference table with the seller. He says, well, boys, I got a flight to catch, throws his keys across the table, and that's the last we ever talked to him. As we're starting to get ramped up in the first 100 days, our whole deals, learn and do no harm. Just get in, understand the business, understand the people. COVID hits, right? And with which I think everyone probably has their own story, but went from a who knows what this is, probably nothing, to just compound. It's like, okay, well, how does this really affect us? And we started realizing pretty quickly, hey, all of the communities are shutting down. I mean, we're putting locks on doors, nobody's getting in. The projects where we were going to existing communities came to a halting stop. It's look, we're not bringing you guys in for this. We got to figure this out. We'll do this later. That was about 80% of our business. I had to go on furlough within the first 3 months of owning the business. It was tough for us in the sense of we hadn't built absolutely zero, if not negative political capital with our employees. So that was a tough one to work through.
So it's also great to go home to the wife too.
Yep. I just moved you from Texas to Milwaukee and we're taking a 20% pay cut. She was absolutely thrilled.
There was a month where I had to stop looking at Wall Street Journal because senior living was the tip of the spear. They took an unfair stain over that period where senior living itself, not only in that first 3 months, hey, projects we can't get in, but I think the stigma around senior living really was affected for the next 2 to 3 years. And that was why, outside of some seller issues and everything else, the rebound wasn't as fast because I think a lot of people started questioning, like, wait, am I going to go send my mom into this place that everything I've seen for the last 3 months is horror story after horror story? That was a very challenging first 2 years.
So what were some of the pivots and how did you end up where you are now? Show us that journey from the dark depths of COVID to a transformed business model.
Again, going into it, strategy is really fun to do. Looks great on paper. And we had this nice path to getting recurring revenue over like 3 to 5 years. And 6 months in, we were like, all right, we need to take that 3 to 5 year roadmap and do it in 1 year. We started to figure out, okay, well, if I can't do big projects, if that's shut down, what are the other services that I can provide? What are the things that they need and they can't live without? COVID actually helped us a lot because we had to become really, really sharp operators from every penny mattered. We had a ton of revenue. It hides a lot of issues. I mean, that first 6 months, it was like we are squeezing every penny out of this business to become way, way, way more efficient. We cut probably about 30% of the expense out of the business, automated a lot of things, and then going to market significantly faster than we had originally planned.
About 40% of our revenue is generated through PalCare's direct sales team. And then we had two channel partners that were about 30%, 30% respectively. By the end of this year, 100% of our revenue will be direct. So it's really building out the experience for our customers, where when you buy a PalCare system, you're working directly with a PalCare employee and not a random distributor. And that's paid real dividends over the last few years.
Casey and Hutson, how do you feel? How's it going? What does the future look like for PalCare? And what do you predict over the next few years?
You can start with 10x. Just say 10x.
10x, easy. We're very, very excited about the business right now. I think we've been fortunate to continue growing our team. Brought on a COO, brought on a CRO this year that we're very excited about. Have an ample of new products that are going to be going live next year that we think are going to be big movers for not only us, but really help provide better services and products to the customers that we support and the seniors that we support. We're excited about where we are. It's taken us a while to get here, but it's one of those that we feel very strongly that we built a great business and are on the precipice of starting to see that really turn into something great.
And you're getting a lot of calls from private equity firms every week. So that suggests that an exit is a very real possibility.
We looked at it last year. By the time we were done with it, Casey and I walked away saying, look, let's put our heads down. Let's keep growing a great business. Exit will take care of itself.
Yeah, they're in the ultimate desirable position. Big moat, great logos, good growing margins, and they've done what is one of the hardest things on earth to do, but to go from no contractual SaaS or even software to then be valued on an ARR basis, that's where they're going to really, really, cha-ching, and we get to high five them in the legs.
We're finally in that place where it's like, I don't need to spend 75% of my time on the day-to-day, right? 75% of my time is spent on culture, vision, strategy. Like, where are we going? How do I paint this 3 to 5 year roadmap? How do I think about, like, the big question right now, AI? I get to spend a lot more of my time on what are the fundamentals that could change us even further. Our COO started in January. So for me, 40% is still in the day-to-day. I get pulled in.
How hard has that transition been for you guys?
The letting go, the delegating, it takes time. But I think we got lucky. We hired a really good and talented COO. And I think when you think about trust, when you think about all the things that are culturally important to me and Hutson, it took us a little bit longer to find a person, but she's made it very easy.
I think both with COO and CRO pretty early on in the interview process, it's like, they would be really good at this. Like, they have the skill set to do it. For the last 5 years, so much of our focus has been building a great business and building a great culture to support this and support our customers. But they are the ones who are leading the day-to-day. So far, they both knocked it out of the park, which has been great.
Casey Schuler and Hutson Prioleau of PalCare, Dustin Sellers of Next Coast Legacy, and August Felker of Oberly Risk Strategies. Thank you so much for joining a Search Party episode, and I hope we can have you back in the near future. Search Party is sponsored by Avid Bank, Boulay, Mayer Brown, Plexus Capital, and Oberly. The lead sponsor is Next Coast Legacy.